And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this first day of November. Well, that's right. Hard to believe, but here we are, the first day of November. And with this, I'd like to once again welcome you all for joining in today. Well, what a weekend it has been. So many functions and events. Brisbane is abuzz with activities. It's just hard to keep up with everything. There was so much that happened in the weekend. We had the mosque open day. We have, of course, had the students function, which was once upon a time in Mumbai, the Benyo Diwali, Queensland Telugu Association, the Dasara and Deepavali, Benyo Diwali, and much, much more. All of those reports we'll bring to you during the course of the week. We'll probably touch on one at a time. But there's so much that's still going to be happening. And of course, from today, we sort of embark on the chart of Diwali. So, of course, we know Diwali is over a few days. Tomorrow is Dhanteras. So it is a very, very auspicious day when special prayers are made to Mata Lakshmi. And of course, it is also the Yam Divas when a special oil-lit diya is put out for Yamraj. Well, right now, as we know, that our Prime Minister is in Rome for that summit. Let's take a look at that report.
The first international test of Scott Morrison's climate credentials is here in Rome, where leaders of the richest 20 nations are gathering for the G20 summit. G20 is usually focused on the world economy, and while this one will have a focus on the post-pandemic recovery, it'll also serve as the precursor to the UN climate talks in Glasgow next week.
It's a good opportunity to align and discuss what our various plans are.
The Prime Minister insists Australia has a good record on cutting carbon pollution, but other nations want stronger action, particularly the United States and Britain. The French President, Emmanuel Macron, who's still angry about Australia's abrupt cancellation of a $90 billion submarine contract, has called on Australia to stop production and consumption of coal, Australia's biggest export.
Our policy is very clear. We're not engaged in those sort of mandates and bans. That's not the Australian government's policy, won't be the Australian government's policy.
It's unclear whether the PM will meet President Macron here in Rome or in Glasgow, but there's a lot of healing to be done in Australia's relationship with France.
Of course there'll be candid conversations at the start as we deal with the issues as they've presented.
As for whether consensus on net zero by 2050 can be achieved at G20 or in Glasgow, that looks unlikely. 3 of the world's 4 biggest polluters, China, India and Russia, aren't embracing the 2050 target. And President Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin aren't even turning up. As ever on climate change, there's a considerable gulf between nations. But if the experts are right, without coordinated action by all of them, there'll be no stopping catastrophic global warming.
Global warming is here to stay by the looks of it, as we know that the major countries are not agreeing on that 2050 target. They have all got their own target setups, and here's a glimpses of some of the meetings or some of the people that our Prime Minister met. So he's meeting there with Joe Biden, and he is the full group, people, planet, and prosperity. I like the middle one, meaning planet. We really need to look after that. And this was, again, a very good meeting. Prime Minister Modi, meeting Scott Morrison while Boris Johnson looks on, and of course Trudeau there as well. So, it is wonderful, and we'll bring you more coverage of all the things that were happening there. But today, we move on. So when they're talking about this technology, talking about the coal, many countries are going to put a hold on coal production, but local consumption is, there's no clear guidelines as to what's going to happen, whether that's going to be stopped. Here's that report.
The big difference from where it was only a week ago is that Australia has now committed to net zero by 2050. So we've got ourselves into the club got through the front door, if you like, into the club. The challenge is that just achieving net zero by 2050 now is considered generally from an environmental perspective not to be enough. So we've got a plan. Unfortunately, the plan is mostly around how we develop technologies that won't really have to have an impact on emissions until the 2030s and 2040s, whereas we need to be doing stuff now, most of which is actually achievable and affordable for Australia, and that's where the pressure is going to be on. I don't think that we'll have to, I don't think the Prime Minister is going to back off, but it will be an awkward place, although it's better than it was a week ago.
This is a campaign that has been at the forefront of Pacific thinking for many, many years, and obviously one of the challenges that Pacific leaders face this time around is that given that the conference is being held in Glasgow and with all the limitations arising out of COVID, the number of Pacific delegations is much smaller than might have been hoped. So a number of countries have not been able to send delegations at all. They're hoping to be able to join some sessions virtually, but in terms of actually being there present in the room or the rooms, that's going to be quite difficult for them. But I think certainly it's been made very clear by Pacific leaders, both at national and regional level, by voices from civil society, from this new grouping that we've seen emerge just in the last couple of days, the Pacific Elders, that this is really, they see this as the last chance for the global community to really step up and deliver on promises that have been made previously. We've heard very strong commitments from the US, from the European Union, from the UK, that really do measure up to what the Pacific leadership has been calling for.
Well, I think it's one of these situations where language can be very important. Part of the answer is that technology is necessary if we're going to address climate change. Across the entire economy, there are all sorts of areas where technology will be essential. However, the problem is that that's only a third of the story. Technology is not enough. There's a lot to be done. And of course, the other thing is that we need to work out how we're going to allow trading of carbon credits. So that's a big deal for Australia. It's a big deal there. Technology is essential. It's not enough.
Essential but not enough as per that report, and that is couldn't agree more. Of course, we today have to embrace technology, live with technology, work with technology. But is it going to cut through in looking after the environment and the planet? Whether that is the solution or not is a debate which is had to be had. And of course, there are many experts in that field who would argue otherwise, but global warming, as was reported in the first report that we presented today, is something that really needs to be addressed, but major countries are refusing to meet that target. Well, another unfortunate incident where, one dead and 3 critically in that boat collapse.
Emergency services personnel were called to Sandon Point Beach just after 10 o'clock this morning following reports a boat had capsized on the rocks in rough conditions off the coast today. Now, 8 people had to be pulled to shore to be treated for injuries. 7 of those people were all men who were on board the boat at the time that it capsized. Sadly, 1 of those men died. Another 3 had to be airlifted to separate hospitals in a critical condition, and the remaining 3 were treated for minor injuries. Another man who was a local surfer, the first on the scene, who attempted to help pull the men to safety from the boat, he suffered chemical burns from the boat's fuel and also had to be taken to hospital where he was treated for those injuries but remains in a stable condition. Now, emergency services personnel say that this is one of the worst boating tragedies they've seen in decades, with multiple crews here today having to perform CPR at the same time on 4 of those men who were pulled from the boat. They've also praised the efforts of local surfers who were the first on scene and who helped to pull the men from the boat. They say this could have been a much bigger tragedy also had there not have been a training exercise being done here by the Bulli Surf Lifesaving Club and other surf lifesaving clubs in the area. So crews were able to respond extraordinarily quickly to this particular scene. Now, an investigation is ongoing into what caused the incident and whether or not alcohol may have been involved or another factor, and it still remains unclear at this stage if any of the men on board the boat were wearing life jackets.
So there you go, life jackets always save lives, and many times it has been said, and of course in one of the earlier reports we did last week, there was a call for compulsory life jackets from South Australia after that tragic incident where a similar thing happened with the boat capsizing. Well, whether alcohol was involved or not, this is a tragic incident. Whatever the cause, it is very, very tragic. And it's hats off to all those first responders who were there. And of course, it is good to see that the training activities that were happening there paid off. And also the local sailors who came to the rescue and answered the call. So that is very, very good to see. Well, right now, on a slightly higher note, let's go golfing. Yes, it's a perfect day for it. Well, by the way, in Brisbane today, it's 22 degrees and cloudy today. Quite pleasant out there, after that rain and the storm. It's cooled down a bit, so it's not as warm as it was last week. Well, as I said, golfing. So let's go golfing as this industry is booming.
In regional New South Wales, golf clubs are often described as the heart of a town. And in places like Bathurst, COVID-19 has made them even more important.
Everyone wanted to do something that was safe in a big open area like this, and we found the phones just ringing a lot, and people playing golf, trying it out.
It's the ladies who are joining in swathes, breaking down barriers in what's typically been a male-dominated sport.
It was the best thing I ever did. It means I get out twice a week, come down here twice a week to play. Gives me out in the fresh air and the sunshine. I've made a lot of new friends.
A luxury many went so long without.
But it just meant that I could meet up with other people and socialise. Save my sanity and do the groceries on the way home, and that was it.
Just a short drive away in Orange, it's the same story. Memberships at the Duntree Golf Club have swung up by 14% since last year.
It is seen as a sport for older people, but it's really a sport for all ages. And it's awesome to be out there.
And if they just start and get that bug, sometimes they're here for life.
In Australia, golf membership numbers have been declining for 2 decades.
We had Greg Norman in the 90s being world number one, and that really drove participation in Australia back then. And since then I haven't seen anything that's really driven participation of golf until COVID.
While other sports are struggling to get back on their feet, golf is booming.
We're looking at more broadly a 32% increase in participation across the board.
It remains to be seen if the lockdown lift will last.
This can either be a one-off sugar hit, or this can be the start of a really strong sustained period of growth for our sport around the world.
So while all the newbies are still brushing up on their skills, there may be no better time for you to join the club. Xanthi Gregory, ABC News, Orange.
Well, I'm not yet convinced. Well, maybe one day I'll find that time to go golfing. But I mean, I know it is a wonderful sport, and it's so good to see that after the numbers in Australia are declining, even though globally it is very popular, and it is, as was said before, that it was considered more elderly people's game and more a male-dominated game. Good to see all the ladies coming out there and having a shot at the putt. So it is very good to see. Well, right now, let's see that report from Queensland with Minister Ryan.
Up there. Cool. Couple more to go.
Yeah, no, we're ready.
All right, you want to be Sam Mark Bailey, Minister for Transport Main Roads. You're a little bit closer. All good? Yeah, terrific. Okay, so good news for Queensland is 0 new cases overnight. We have 12 active cases in the state at the moment, and I wanted to say a A big congratulations to our high schools who have been helping with the vaccination tasks. We've done more than 1,500 vaccinations at high schools in the last couple of days, more than 1,000 vaccinations at the Surf Lifesaving Club. So people down there on the beach doing a great job helping get vaccinated. We've seen more than 300 at theme parks as well. We're up to 77.3% people with their first dose, and we're now also at 63.5% people with their double dose. So look, this isn't just a race now, it's a sprint. We need people to get vaccinated, and we need it to happen ASAP because you need to be vaccinated and protected for when the borders open, and there is no issue with supply. There is ample ways of getting vaccinated, and particularly for regional Queenslanders. You know, if you want to avoid a regional lockdown in future, then get vaccinated right now. It takes 5 weeks to get full protection if you get vaccinated today, 3 weeks until your second jab, and then 2 weeks before you get fully protected. We want every single Queenslander to be fully protected as early as possible, and that's what we need to do. So the task is there for people. If you've been putting it off, you've been not getting around to it, this is the time to do it. And if you know friends and family and workmates that you love who haven't been getting it done, this is the time to have the conversation, because the earlier we all get vaccinated, the earlier all the benefits of coming out of the pandemic are there for everybody in our community. So it's a real pleasure to stand up today with the Deputy Chief Health Officer. Of course, the last message today from Dr. Young on her last official day as the Chief Health Officer is get vaccinated, and I support her 100%, and we want to see Queenslanders protected. I've got Lynn McKinlay here, Deputy Chief Health Officer, who's got a few words to say. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you. And look, I haven't obviously got a lot more to say. It's great news again that we've had no cases in Queensland. I would continue to encourage people to go out and get vaccinated. I think it's really important to understand that vaccination will protect yourselves. It'll also protect other people, and it'll protect other people not just from COVID, but it'll also protect people who need to come to hospital for other care. So if we keep our hospitals available so that people who need care for any reason can come and get care. The other thing is, I'd just like to mention I'm a paediatrician by background, and I think it's really important that what I could say is that it's really important for families that you get vaccinated so that you can actually look after yourselves and prevent infection for the vulnerable members of our community, and be there to be able to look after your children once the virus does start to come across our borders. So I'm happy to take some questions later if there's any. Thank you.
We'll just deal with health first. So any questions on health?
I just wanted to ask you on that. We've heard from the Premier even tweeting today that today is your very last chance to get vaccinated.
Sorry, that last bit, Shannon?
You're saying it's 5 weeks, or 6 weeks to get fully vaccinated?
Look, it's 5 weeks to get full protection from when you get the first jab, second jab, and it's 2 weeks after the second jab that your whole system absorbs every bit of the protection. So it's not just a race now, it's a sprint. There's lots of opportunities to get vaccinated. Now is the time for every single person who's been not getting around to it or whatever. This is the time.
So is today your last chance?
Would you like me?
Well, of course, people can get vaccinated. It's a sprint. People need to do it today, tomorrow, as soon as they possibly can. ASAP. Linda, do you want to say a few words there?
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Minister. That might be because some people now are able to access the Moderna vaccine as well as the Pfizer vaccine. They're the two main vaccines available. So Moderna is available in over 600 pharmacies across Queensland, and Pfizer is available at pharmacies and at some GPs and in our Queensland Health vaccination clinics. The Moderna one is a slightly different schedule, so that's 4 weeks between the doses plus 2 weeks. So even after, people, this idea about this being the last chance, we want people to still keep coming forward. You haven't missed your opportunity. We want everybody to keep coming forward, even if it's after today.
Are you worried that some people just won't come forward though anymore, because all the messaging's being this is your last day, that's it, if you're not done by that, well, you're stuffed, and now will people still come forward after this?
Yeah, let me say again, I think we're still going to have vaccine clinics will be available. They will be going on into the new year. So if you haven't come up for your vaccine, please do so now or next week or whenever you feel ready to do it. I know some people will still have questions. The best person to answer your questions is probably your GP, your local pharmacist or the nurse at your local hospital. They're all able to answer your questions and hopefully be able to reassure you to the extent you need.
That 77.3% first dose rate, surely that's not good enough and it puts us in a good position for when we do reopen?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Is that where we need to be? Would you like to see that higher? That's surely not good enough in terms of, what we've been told about it takes 5-6 weeks post border reopening.
So if we're already at 77%, we know that at 3 weeks' time we'll be at least 77% double dosed. When you look at that roadmap and that reuniting families, you'll see that what we're really trying to get to is 80% by December and then 90% as soon as we can. So I'm absolutely with you. We want to get everybody vaccinated, as many as we can.
In terms of when, I guess, the borders do open and COVID comes to the community, what will happen with schools and workplaces? Will they close down?
So once we do get...
The message is clear, trying to get as many people vaccinated as possible, as soon as possible, so that we can reach that target. I'd say that's not a very good place for a press conference with the traffic right at the back. They're finding it hard to hear the questions being asked by the journalist. Well, right now, of course, we were talking about Paris, and of course, here's a glimpse of the treatment that Prime Minister Modi got when he was heading off into the general public on the way greeting him. And those were the scenes from Rome. As we know, wherever he goes, in whichever countries, including here in Australia and especially in Brisbane when he was here, there was a similar treatment. Everyone just loved him, and they all wanted to have a glimpse of him. Bharat Mata Ki Jai, as you could hear in the background. I remember the scenes when we inaugurated the Mahatma Gandhi statue. As he was coming in, it was guarded off with only the invited guests and dignitaries close by, and all the students and general public lined up outside the street and all trying to get a glimpse of him, and all with the slogans and placards. So, the popularity is still there. So right now, we'll go to our message from our sponsors, and then we'll tell you a glimpse of Once Upon a Time in Bombay, which happened last night. But first of all, here's a message from our sponsors for this segment.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetrealty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world. Don't forget that every Wednesday we have the real estate update right here with Usha Chandra of GlobeNet Realty with the weekly update where we have we look at auctions, sales, market trends, price changes, and of course the general stats throughout the industry. That is a very, very important and very informative update every Wednesday. And don't forget that every Thursday we have the travel updates with Tanvi Goyal. As we know, international travel has opened. First flights have touched down in Sydney and Melbourne. So moving on, right now we will go to that report of the first ever joint function of the 4 big universities, the real universities. So University of Queensland, QUT, Bond University and Griffith all got together to host this mega event called Once Upon a Time in Mumbai. Now the good part was, I was speaking to Epikiwa who run the events in City Hall. So, the venue chosen was very appropriate. It was going to be in the Greek Club in the very beginning, but after the COVID, it went to a better place. So, I said to them that, if we can all get together and host a big function like this, it'll be. So it was good to see that the students organizing a function and managing that itself. So it was, of course, by flavor, students, so the function had a young flavor to it. But the energy that was there, and that's what the EPQI staff were saying, that, hey, you come to a lot of functions here, but he said the energy that I'm feeling here today, there were crowds coming in, there was a long queue to get in, everyone were going to the photo booth, getting their photos done, and all these students would have spent a fair bit of money getting their costumes and all the gear in place, but it was good to see that they're all coming together and just having a wonderful time. And that was last night. I'm not sure of how many would have made it to the classes today, but here's some glimpses of the night. And this is Bhangra United, led by Kalpana. Now, the thing to note on the night was that there was a little bit of a battle between North and South. The South Indian Tapori and Lungi dance, or should it be Bhangra and Gidda? So, there was a bit of a competition going on. Go the Southerners. So as soon as the music changes, they started screaming because, all the ones from the southern states wanted their style of music as well. But let's go back to Bhangra, back to Bhangra United, led by Kalpana. So 510 people, 51 tables, City Hall was jam-packed. And as you can see from the scenes that, everyone loved the dance. What about the Desi boys? The Desi boys, as soon as we arrived there, they came in a big stretch limo, the Hummer limo, and they started calling out my name. I said, who are they? Then I looked at and I said, oh my God, it's the Desi boys, and here's a glimpse of their performance. And all this was before the dance floor was officially open. This was the performance segment where everyone's supposed to sit down and watch the performances. But of course, later on, DJ Uri and DJ Chester took the night away, and the students just had a wonderful time, dancing the night away. What about Tapori? Let's hear from, the Tapori squad. Okay, so there you go. It was just a wonderful event, as I mentioned, an organization, and the whole thing being organized by the students and for the students mainly, but there were general public who attended as well. But it was just wonderful to see that, they're taking leadership in organizing and looking at a lot of finer details that go into organizing a function of this magnitude. And it is very good to see that, this is called coming of age of our community. When our students can reach this kind of level, of course, nowadays, the numbers are there. Before, the numbers were just definitely not there. Now the numbers are there, not at this point in time with a little bit of decline, but the student numbers are tipped to be opening as well. And just a point to note that these were the 4 major universities, Indian students from that. So, Queensland University Indian Cultural and Society, and the CSIQ, CSIG, and BUIA, which is the Bond University, of course, Griffith, QUT, and UQ. All of them coming together, and we have worked with all of them before. I remember Chintan Mehta used to run the CSIQ, then Kritika Bansal came there as well. So all the kids, we have seen them, how these clubs have evolved, and it is wonderful to see that for the first time ever, all four the big universities got together. Indian Students Association of all four major universities got together to put on this mega show, which was very, very well done. So congratulations and thank you very much for that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment. Don't forget that we are back tomorrow with the full segment, when we'll have the news update plus, of course, the Daily India report with Ankita as well. Until then, it's goodbye from me.